Frank Melina's Dream. Preface: The Desert and the Echo. I follow the dictates of my own conscience. The year was 1945. The world, a global patient running a fever of war, was finally showing signs of recovery, its continental wounds beginning to scar over. Yet the engines of innovation, forged in the crucible of conflict and lubricated with the desperate currency of survival, had never been more powerful. In the desolate, sun-bleached expanse of the Arroyo Seco, a dry riverbed near Pasadena that shimmered under the relentless Californian sun, a small, dedicated band of scientists and engineers toiled in a self-imposed, secretive exile. They called themselves the Suicide Squad, a darkly humorous, self-aware nod to the inherent, intimate dangers of their work. They were wrestling with the chained demon of controlled explosion. They were building rockets. At the heart of this audacious endeavor was Frank J. Melina, a brilliant, conflicted figure at the vanguard of this new, terrifying science. The son of Czech immigrants, born in the flatlands of Texas, Melina was a man of two minds. He possessed a rigorous, analytical intellect honed at Caltech's Guggenheim Aeronautical Laboratory, GALCIT, a mind that saw the universe as a series of elegant, solvable equations. But he also harbored the soul of an artist, a yearning for beauty and a deep-seated belief in the betterment of humanity. He was a co-founder of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, a name that whispered of a future among the planets, but the present was less poetic. The crucible of global war had twisted his initial, idealistic vision. He had dreamed of science as a tool for peaceful exploration. Now, his creations were instruments of destruction, their guidance systems designed to deliver payloads to distant, unseen enemies. This internal conflict gnawed at him, a constant, low-frequency dissonance beneath the roar of test fires and the crisp crackle of calculations on a slide rule. The Arroyo Seco was their sanctuary and their prison, a place of profound isolation where they could fail spectacularly without endangering the nearby city. The air was a thick cocktail of smells, the acrid bite of propellants, the sharp scent of hot metal quenching in the dry air, the dusty perfume of sagebrush baking under the sun. Days bled into a seamless cycle of meticulous assembly, nerve-wracking countdowns, and violent, glorious tests. Each launch was a gamble, a ballet of calculated risks and unpredictable variables played out in a fraction of a second. Safety protocols were a nascent, evolving scripture, often improvised on the spot. Every member of the Suicide Squad understood the odds. They were literally playing with fire, poking at the laws of physics with a stick, and the stick was occasionally faulty. Frank Melina, his brow perpetually furrowed in concentration, his outward demeanor one of calm competence, carried the weight of this knowledge and the silent, heavier burden of his conscience. He had, as one contemporary noted in a letter, racked himself with inner conflict over working for the military. His impassioned calls for scientific advancement for the purpose of bettering humanity often fall on deaf ears in the rooms where budgets are decided. The rockets soared, yes, but they carried an unspoken price of human suffering, a paradox that burned in his gut like undigested fuel. This simmering tension within him, this quiet desperation for a different purpose, for a validation of his life's work that did not end in a crater, was about to find an unexpected, almost mystical, release. Introduction: The Eternity in a Second. The desert floor vibrated, a low, deep thrum that resonated up through the soles of their boots. The source was the WAC Corporal sounding rocket, poised on its launch pad like a silver needle aimed at the heart of the sky. It was a slender, elegant beast of metal and ambition, designed not for war, but to pierce the stratospheric veil, to touch the edge of space and report back on its mysteries. It was a rare, pure science mission, a brief reprieve from the grim work of war. Frank Melina, his face smudged with grease, a cartographer of this new frontier, knelt to adjust a final sensor array. Around him, the Suicide Squad moved with the practiced efficiency of a veteran surgical team, a wordless symphony of focused effort. Theodore von Karman, his mentor and intellectual second father, stood a few paces back, his famously piercing gaze fixed on the rocket. He was a small man who cast a giant shadow, a titan of aerodynamics whose presence was a silent testament to the years of theoretical struggle, now reaching fiery fruition. Clear the area for final arming. The range officer barked, his voice sharp and echoing across the arid landscape. The last of the junior technicians scrambled for the safety of the blockhouse, leaving only the primary launch crew dotted around the pad, Frank among them, overseeing the final, delicate checks. The countdown began, its measured cadence broadcast over tinny loudspeakers, a rhythmic counterpoint to the rapid, anxious thumping of Frank's own heart. 10, 9, 8. He knelt, his fingers, calloused from years of working with tools, but still possessing a surgeon's precision, making a final adjustment to a fuel line connector. It needed to be perfect. Sudden, unexpected jolt shook the ground, perhaps a microquake, a common tremor in this active land, or maybe just the sheer sympathetic vibration from the rocket's pre-igniting engines. A heavy metal-cased diagnostic unit, left precariously on a nearby crate, shifted. Frank wasn't looking. His entire world had shrunk to the delicate connection between his wrench and the brass fitting. 7, 6. The diagnostic unit, obeying the simple laws of gravity, tipped. It swung down in a short, brutal arc. Frank never saw it coming. The metal corner caught him hard on the temple. Pain, a blinding, white-hot flash, exploded behind his eyes. The world dissolved into a smear of overexposed color, the brilliant blue of the sky bleeding into the ochre of the desert floor. The sound of the countdown, Von Karman's concerned shout, the very air itself, it all faded into a deep, rushing drone. He felt himself falling, not just to the ground, but through it. The hard-packed earth rushed up to meet him, and then darkness, absolute and profound, swallowed him whole. For the outside world it was barely a second. A minor, clumsy accident, a few shouted words, a brief delay in the countdown. But for Frank J. Melina, plummeting into that abrupt oblivion, it was an eternity woven from the red dust of a world yet to be walked upon, the silent, majestic expanse of the void, and the shimmering, impossible light of a future yet to be written. In that profound, instantaneous plunge into unconsciousness, his mind, freed from the linear constraints of time and the immediate physics of his reality, unlocked. The guilt of his war work, his boundless scientific zeal, the quiet, persistent yearning of the artist within him, all converged in a kaleidoscopic torrent of sensation. The boundaries between thought and memory, between dream and theory, dissolved completely. He wasn't just falling. He was falling through time, through possibilities, through the very fabric of existence he had only just begun to theorize. He found himself drifting in a silent, star-dusted void. This was not the cold, indifferent vacuum of space he knew from his calculations, a place of hard radiation and absolute zero. This was a living, breathing canvas of light and potential. Stars were not distant, lonely pinpricks, but vibrant, swirling nebulae of sapphire and gold, their cosmic dust stretching out like welcoming arms. He felt a presence, an ancient, cosmic resonance that vibrated deep within his bones, dissolving the knots of tension and conflict that had plagued him for years. This was the infinite universe, not a destination, but a state of being, a future where humanity's journey had finally transcended the bitter gravity of a single, warring planet. The vision sharpened. He saw cities, not built on rock, but carved from it. He floated through a vast, hollowed-out asteroid, its interior shimmering with the soft, internal light of countless dwellings. Families walked along pathways that curved in defiance of gravity, their lives protected from the void by the sheer mass of their repurposed world. He witnessed vessels, not like his crude, brute-force rockets, but elegant ships that seemed to ripple and flex space-time itself, traversing the unimaginable distances between stars in mere blinks. They didn't burn fuel. They sang to the geometry of the universe. He felt the network, a concept so grand it almost overwhelmed him. It was interstellar communications, an instantaneous sharing of thoughts, faces, and ideas across light years. A scientist on a moon orbiting a gas giant could collaborate in real time with an artist on a terraformed desert world. It was a nervous system for a galactic species, a tool that had rendered misunderstanding and isolation nearly obsolete. He saw the solutions to Earth's looming crises: overpopulation, resource scarcity, climate collapse, solved not by desperate wars, but rendered irrelevant by boundless new frontiers and technologies that made scarcity a relic of a primitive past. But the vision was not a simple utopia. The dream was threaded with shadows, with the persistent echoes of humanity's past. He glimpsed vast corporate empires, cold and monolithic, a chilling reflection of the industrial military complex he served. One, in particular, stood out, a brutalist entity, its signet emblazoned on the sides of oppressive Martian habitats. It was a company that sought to monopolize the very air breathed on a distant planet, a stark reminder that greed was an interstellar traveler. He saw the inevitable conflicts, the struggle for control transposed onto new worlds. He saw a Mars, its surface greened in patches, a miracle of terraforming. Yet its society was scarred by the ghosts of a revolution. He saw its people, their hard-won freedom a constant, vigilant fight against the unseen chains of ideology and history. Yet, even in these dark reflections, there was an underlying current of hope, of resilience. He saw art, not confined to galleries on Earth, but pulsating through the very architecture of the space stations. He saw his own Lumidyne system, his kinetic sculptures of light and motion, expanded on a scale he could never have imagined. They were not just static art pieces. They were the living, breathing hearts of entire cities, generating light and warmth, animating public spaces with ever-changing, mesmerizing patterns of color. They were art as infrastructure, beauty as utility. He witnessed the evolution of thought, the great philosophical debates that echoed across the network. A new concept, one to perceive, bloomed in his mind. A theory that reality itself was not a fixed, objective state, but was shaped by the collective narratives, the shared stories and interpretations of a thinking species. He saw children, born under new suns, learning history not as a list of dates and battles, but as a complex tapestry of choices, of pivotal moments where humanity had either succumbed to its base instincts or risen to its higher potential. In that moment of absolute clarity, Frank Malina understood. He realized, with a profound, soul-shaking certainty, that the true purpose of his science was not just to build, but to reveal. To reveal connections, to reveal possibilities, to reveal the inherent artistry in the structure of the universe itself. His rockets, powerful as they were merely blunt instruments, chisels to crack open a door. The real work lay in what humanity chose to do on the other side. His conflicted conscience, racked by the military applications of his work, found a new solace, a new direction in this boundless future where science and art were inseparable, twin engines of exploration and understanding. The vision flickered, dissolved. The stars receded. The distant, silent song of the star. Ships faded, replaced by the faint, buzzing sound of the Arroyo Seco desert and the urgent, muffled shouts of voices above him. "Frank, Frank, can you hear me?" It was Jack Parson, his face a mask of concern, hovering over him. Frank's eyes fluttered open. The desert sun, blindingly bright, beat down on him. The WAC corporal still stood on its pad, a stark, metallic sentinel waiting patiently to claim a piece of the sky. The scent of propellant was sharp, real, but something had shifted irrevocably within him. The seconds of his fall had stretched into an eternity, and in that eternity he had seen the limitless cosmos. He struggled to sit up, a profound, almost manic calm settling over his features. The launch could wait. He knew, with a certainty that transcended logic, what his next steps must be. His career in rocketry would continue, driven by the necessities of the era, but his true life's work had just been revealed to him. This spiritual moment, born from a minor accident in a desolate desert, was the wellspring for his later, surprising engagements in world politics, not as a politician, but as an influential counselor for UNESCO, championing global scientific cooperation. And more profoundly, it was the cause for his ultimate dedication to the arts. He would dedicate the rest of his life to bridging the chasm he had seen so clearly in his vision, the gap between the scientific and the artistic, between the power to create and the wisdom to use it well. He would advocate for a future where innovation served human connection and understanding, not just power and destruction. He had seen the truth beyond the rockets, beyond the war. He had seen the dream, and he would spend the rest of his life trying to bring that dream, the vision of a truly unlimited humanity, into being. The desert, once a mere testing ground, had become the laboratory for a new kind of experiment. In that brief moment of unconsciousness, Frank J. Malina had seen the result of a 1,000-year equation and its elegant, undeniable proof of what was now to come.